What's up, guys? Fooch from Fooch TV here. Now we're stepping things up with our production value here today. Now if you could see that in the background, I sure as heck can't. I don't know what's back there. It could be a giant crab destroying a city, or a kid accidentally hitting another kid with a bat while trying to hit a piñata, or it could even be some sort of fat man running around in one of those floppy horse suits. I have no idea, because in fact, that is a green screen, and I gave full control to my co-producer slash video editor, possibly foolishly giving full control about what is going on back there right now. So hopefully it's nothing too crazy that gets me banned from YouTube. Now today I wanted to talk about a couple of things. One, I didn't really know where to go with this YouTube channel when I first started it. I started off giving an update about Corona, then I kind of talked about, the whole spicy food thing, and then I kind of started going into social issues as the nth room came up, and I kind of stuck with that for kind of a while, and I think the majority of the channel will be focused on social issues happening in Korea. Now, however, despite me making these videos explaining these events to the rest of the world, because there's not a lot of coverage in English, I wanted to point out that despite this stuff happening, Korea is still an extremely safe country, and I think it's one of the best, if not the best countries in the world to live in, at least for foreigners. So with this video, I kind of wanted to discuss some of the reasons why I really enjoy living in Korea, and I narrowed it down to about 5 solid reasons why I enjoy living in Korea. One thing to point out is, I saw some other videos doing these top 5 or top 10 things they like about living in Korea, and I kind of didn't want to cover the same things as they did. Otherwise, why watch this video? A lot of people are talking about how the transportation is great, especially in Seoul. That's absolutely true. The food is extremely delicious and reasonably priced. Absolutely true. It's absolutely safe in Korea. I can walk around any time of the day, 2 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever. I can be listening to music, walking around with wallet in my cash in my wallet, and have no issues with safety whatsoever. I don't feel in danger. I don't feel any threats whatsoever. Just last week, I was riding the bus and my AirPod case accidentally fell out of my pocket. The next day, I called the bus company, and guess what? It was still there. All the cases of you leaving your phone and computer at a cafe and stepping out for some period of time, and returning, and it's still being there. All of those stories are true, and I didn't really want to focus on those things, so I kind of tried to think a little bit outside of the box and come up with my own somewhat unique list, the top 5 things of why I enjoy living in Korea. So why don't we get started with that list? We'll start off with number 5. Number 5 is the scenery is absolutely beautiful. Now, despite Seoul being a very developed city with very tall buildings and a lot of traffic, there's still a lot of beautiful scenery in Seoul. They've developed the city to make sure that, when you're outside of work, you're able to enjoy nature, essentially. This is not something that I learned until I started riding a bicycle throughout the city. Before, when I was just riding the subway or riding the bus, I thought, despite Seoul being a great place to live, I thought it was quite an ugly city, especially because a lot of the apartment complexes look like dystopian prisons, to a sense. That's because back when Korea was developing, 70s, 80s, and 90s, they kind of had one blueprint for apartment buildings, and they just, would crank out buildings based on that blueprint. But riding the bike throughout Seoul, I was able to see so many great, beautiful things. The Han River and the parks around it are absolutely beautiful. The city's made sure to put a lot of flowers, to put basketball courts, badminton courts. It's just really, really beautiful, and it really made me see the city in a new way that I never saw before. And now I really appreciate how beautiful of a city Seoul is. Number 4, not only is the scenery quite beautiful, but the people are very beautiful as well. That's not to say that Korean people necessarily look or are more attractive than people from other countries. However, looks in Korean culture are extremely important, regardless of what age you are. From a young age, probably starting until the end of middle school, all the way up until, 50s and 60s, how you look is extremely important. And as a result, people put a lot of effort into their looks, whether that's through their hair or their sense of style or makeup that they purchase. It's just ridiculous walking around the city. I've never seen so many beautiful people in one place at one time. Now, when I do a future video about things that I don't necessarily like about Korea or things that I think that could improve about Korea, I think that's a better way of putting it, that also, the flip side to that, everyone being beautiful and everyone caring about looks, that comes into play as well, but I'll, wait until a later video to take care of that. However, for today, I'd just like to say that it's ridiculous how beautiful the people are here. That's not just girls, that's guys as well. They're well clothed, they're well groomed. I always joke with my Korean Australian friends or Koreans themselves that it's kind of unfair, especially for Korean girls, because there's so many good-looking people that it actually brings down the average. So if you're taking a look at a scale from 1 to 10, and by the way, 5 is average. 5 is average. I don't understand why we have a scale from 1 to 10 and then 7 is average. So then you have 4 points to talk about attractiveness and then 6 degrees of ugly. Doesn't make any sense. So with 5 being the average, if you take a girl in Korea that's between 4, maybe 4 and 6, and you take her out of Korea and put her in another country, she automatically becomes a 6 to an 8, just because there's so many beautiful people here that it just pushes the average down, and that we can see that especially for girls. So it's a little bit unfair because these beautiful girls, they're dating guys that are like, they could do much better if it was in another country, and that goes for me as well. I'm sure one of the girls I've dated could do much better had they had gone to another country looking for a guy. Now, somewhat related to that, number 3 is Korea is a great place to date. Now, I'm a pretty good-looking dude.
What? What the
Now, I'm a pretty, average-looking good dude. Now, I'm not a completely ugly guy. However, for some reason, I'm from Los Angeles. It's just extremely hard to date in LA. I think it's rated one of the hardest places to date. I speak to friends that currently live there. They tell me struggles that they have with dating. I don't know if everyone, they go to LA trying to become a model or an actor or something, and everyone just has their head up their ass or whatever. It's just a difficult place to date. However, Korea is not like that. And yeah, some of it may have to do with the fact that I'm a foreigner and there's that kind of exoticness. However, I stay away from girls that exclusively date foreigners. I think it's just because the culture here is a dating culture. Even for Koreans, it's like this feeling of you always need to be in a relationship. If you're not in a relationship, people are trying to recommend people for you to date. And a lot of the dramas, there's a lot of, you have to date someone at all times. So I think because of that reason, the dating culture here is much better. It's much easier to find someone to date than in LA, based on my personal experiences and also my experiences living in Sydney. So I think that covers number 3. Number 2 is in Korea, you don't have to deal with this crap. Now here we don't have, the whole, why would you lick an ice cream just to prove a point and post it on social media during, when Corona is starting to blow up? We don't have to deal with idiots like that. We don't have to deal with idiots not wearing a mask. It's a form of compliance, not safety. Every law you follow is you're complying to something. So why do you draw the line at masks when we're in this pandemic? And even if it's not 100% foolproof, just wear the damn mask. That's something you don't have to deal with here. There's no police brutality here, so you don't have to worry about that. There's no, just the other day there was someone skateboarding outside my house, and guess what, foreigner? Other than that, people don't do things like that. There's a way of living. There's these invisible rules in society in Korea, and everyone follows that, and that makes for a very, very pleasant living experience. You don't have these idiots doing stupid things. you don't have any drama happening outside, and you definitely don't have any police brutality or theft, or there's no graffiti. Like, graffiti? Anywhere in LA you go, there's graffiti in the bathroom. Why would you put graffiti? Why would you scratch your stupid name into the toilet or write it anywhere? It just doesn't make any sense. And fortunately, living in Korea, we don't have to deal with any of that BS. So that's my number 2 reason for loving Korea so much. And my number 1 reason for enjoying living in Korea is that I say that Korea is the place where it's the new American dream, at least for foreigners. I've been back in Korea almost 4 years now, with the idea that anything is possible. And throughout my 4 times living here, obviously I've taught English. However, I did an internship at a radio station where I'd go in weekly to help out with the scripts. Twice a month, I'd actually be on air sharing my own DJ mixes, talking about each song on the #1 English broadcasting station in Seoul. So you could hear me twice a month. I got to interview very famous artists. You could see some pictures of them right here. I got to interview Marcus Schultz. He's my favorite DJ in trance. I got to interview Dubfire and Richie Hawtin and a whole bunch of these other great celebrities. Got to meet them and conduct an interview, which also went on the radio. I've started my own company recently. I work with corporations. I've been able to DJ around Seoul in lounges and clubs, and now I partnered with my good friend to create our own party group and host parties and hopefully grow that into a big business. My point is there's so many possibilities for you to do, possibilities in Korea, and it's just absolutely great that we have these possibilities. Now, I'm not speaking for everyone. Koreans have it a little bit differently than foreigners do. We don't compete with Koreans, we compete with other foreigners, and I like to break it down. There's 3 types of foreigner groups. The first group is the group of people that come here just, very short term. Maybe they're doing an exchange semester, maybe they're an international student, maybe they just want to teach for a year after graduating university. The second group, they enjoy living in Korea, they like it, however, they know it's not long-term for them, so they don't really bother learning that much Korean. They have some Korean friends and don't really understand. They know some about Korean culture, but it's just very shallow level. They ended up staying 5 to 10 years, and then they go back to their home country. And then you have group 3, which is the people that know they want to be here long-term. They're actually properly learning the language. They have a bunch of Korean friends, and they're trying to integrate themselves into society. And that's the group that I'm participating in. And the number of people in that group is not very big. And therefore, and even in that group, it's how many people are actually motivated to be entrepreneurial or start their own business or do whatever. And that group is even smaller. So there's really not a lot of competition currently for these spaces. So for me, it's been, obviously there's a lot of luck involved in it. I'm very grateful and very blessed for the opportunities that I've had, and it's also a bit of hard work and understanding that anything is possible. If you have a goal, you're able to achieve it as long as you keep pushing towards it. And for me, living in Korea I've been able to do so many things than just sit in an office from 9 to 5. I've been able to, just in this 4 years, speaking limited Korean. The first 2 years even worse than now. However, now it's a decent level, but I've just had so many great experiences, and the longer I live here and the more people I meet and the better my Korean gets, the more opportunities I have. I think Michael Bloomberg said, everything's based on luck, but the harder you work, the luckier you get, and you have more opportunities. So for me, I'm very thankful and blessed, and I think that Korea is just an amazing place for people that have dreams, that are willing to work hard, and they're very able to achieve those dreams. So that's where I'm going to cut it off right here. Those are my top 5 reasons for thinking Korea is one of the best, if not the best country in the world to live into. Of course, there's so many other reasons. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, everything's great. Safety, food, culture, transportation. It's all wonderful. I didn't want to touch too much on those. So I love Korea, even if I keep posting these videos talking about some of the darker sides of culture and the darker sides of society. Don't let that make you think that I don't think this is a great country and I don't think that this is a safe country. I absolutely love Korea. God bless Korea, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.